Everything inside me rewired when I held my son for the first time. It wasn't just love, something more profound, primal, and unshakable. That moment didn't just make me a father, it anchored me to this new life that had just arrived, screaming into the world. I heard people say that your life changes when your child is born, but I never really understood what that meant until I cradled him. He was tiny, fragile, yet the most powerful thing I'd ever touched. And getting to that moment, man, it was pure chaos. His mother went into labor right in the middle of our baby shower. I'm talking about literally in the middle of cutting the cake. One minute I was handing her a plate and looking for a fork, and the next she let out this sound, half gasp, half sob, and bent forward, gripping her belly like something inside her was trying to break free. For a moment, no one moved. It was like someone hit pause on the whole room. The music faded, conversation stopped mid sentence, and every head turned toward her. She looked pale, her eyes wide, hands trembling. I just froze. I hadn't even finished my slice of cake. But the moment I saw her, I dropped the plate without thinking. The crash of ceramic snapped me back into action. Keys. Where are my keys? I was patting my pockets like a man gasping for air. My hands shook so badly that I couldn't open the door on the first try. The adrenaline hit me like lightning, but my coordination was a mess. Someone helped her into the car while I yanked the front seat forward. She groaned and half collapsed into the passenger seat, and I slammed the door shut. Every stoplight on the way to the hospital felt like a personal insult. I yelled at them out loud, "Come on, man, hurry up." She kept breathing in short, panicked bursts. At one point, I reached over and grabbed her hand. "Just breathe, okay? We're almost there." My voice cracked when I said it. I couldn't calm her down because I was barely holding it together. When we pulled to the hospital, it felt like stepping onto a movie set. Doors slid open, nurses rushed out, and a wheelchair appeared like magic. She was wheeled away before I even knew what to say. And suddenly I was left standing in a hallway that smelled of antiseptic and anxiety. Hours blurred together in a whirlwind of frantic activity, clipboard questions scrawled in hasty handwriting, IV bags slowly dripping their life-giving fluids, and the constant beeping of fetal monitors that echoed in my ears. Panic washed over me in waves, each surge leaving me to wonder if something was wrong. I found myself fixated on the doctors, more a spectator than a participant, trying to decipher the expressions on their faces, desperately hoping their calm demeanors meant everything was okay. And then he arrived. My son. When they placed him in my arms, a profound sense of completeness enveloped me, filling a void I hadn't even realized existed. His eyes were barely open, flickering like fragile candles in the dim light, and his tiny body trembled slightly, a fragile, brand new life. But he was here. He was mine. In that indelible moment, everything changed. Yet my deep joy quickly became entangled with confusion and fear. He was struggling. His delicate body was battling against an invisible force beyond his control. At first, I couldn't grasp the reality of what was happening. I questioned the nurses about his trembling, and their exchanged glances spoke volumes. That's when they informed me he would need to be admitted to the NICU. For observation, they said, but their eyes told a different story. What they didn't say was the most crushing detail. He had tested positive for substances. Opiates had been coursing through his innocent veins. That's when the walls began to close in around me. Initially, I couldn't fully process it. My baby boy was detoxing from something he never chose. I had been so engrossed in preparing to be a father, setting up a nursery, saving money, painting the apartment, that I had been unable or unwilling to confront the depth of his mother's struggles. Maybe I didn't want to see it. Love can easily blind you. I spent hours each day by that NICU crib, watching machines that breathed for him, their rhythmic whirring a constant reminder of his fragility. The beeps and alarms created a haunting symphony, tightening my chest with each ominous sound. His tiny, fragile feet were swathed in cuffs, and the IV in his hand seemed like a mere thread holding everything together. No parent should have to witness such a battle, but I remained. I always remained. Each morning, I would rise before the sun at 5 o'clock, working as a salesman at community events or taking any booth job I could find, and then I would rush straight to the hospital. I scrubbed in meticulously and settled beside that clear plastic crib, speaking to him softly. Sometimes I read anything to him, simple children's stories or even the newspaper, to ensure he could hear my voice. Other moments were spent with my hand gently resting on his chest, feeling the rise and fall of his breath, praying with every fiber of my being that he would continue to breathe. The nurses got to know me well. They began to call me, quote, Dad Quat, as though it were my natural title. Some, I sense, looked at me with pity. I wasn't married, and it became evident from the start that the mother would not be a constant presence. She visited a few times during those initial harrowing days, but her visits dwindled rapidly, like the flickering of a dying light. Shorter and less frequent, she would drift in, looking utterly exhausted, offer a flimsy excuse, and then vanish again. Those 3 weeks stretched out, feeling like an eternity. During that time, I learned the delicate art of swaddling, the gentle strategy of giving a sponge bath, and the meticulous process of feeding him through a tube. I even picked up the specialized language of NICU nurses. Each day, my love for my son deepened, not just for his miraculous survival, but for his fierce will to fight for life. That little warrior was battling, and it inspired me. When we finally brought him home, a flood of emotions washed over me, relief mingled with an undercurrent of terror. There were no nurses to guide us, no machines to monitor his vital signs. It was just me, his mother, and this fragile little boy who had already faced more adversity than most grown men. We tried to carve out a semblance of family life, and for a while we managed to pull it off. There were bright spots amid the struggles. I remember one evening when she prepared a warm dinner while I cradled our son for his bath, the sweet smell of soap filling the air. There were nights spent on the couch, holding him snugly between us as a cartoon flickered cheerfully in the background. In those fleeting moments, I could almost convince myself we were a typical family, and I clung to that belief like a lifeline. But the fractures in our facade began to appear all too quickly. She would arrive late for appointments or disappear for hours, leaving me alone with the weight of responsibility. Some days, her temper would flare, a storm brewing behind her distracted gaze. Other times, she would shower us with affection, as if trying to compensate for something lost. Deep down, I sensed the truth. Substances still had a grip on her life, not every day, but often enough to leave a mark. As the weeks passed, I completely assumed the role of caretaker, managing everything from doctor visits to feedings and those endless night shifts. I didn't assume this role out of resentment, but because my son needed someone dependable, someone he could rely on no matter the circumstances. I was already living that reality long before I officially became a single dad. When our son celebrated his first birthday, I had settled into a routine. I would rise in the middle of the night, cradling him in my arms and rocking him back to sleep, changing diapers with practiced efficiency, prepping bottles, and still making it to work on time. Evenings were a blur of cooking dinner, tidying up, and then collapsing onto the couch, my body weary from the cycle, but my spirit unwavering. And honestly, I didn't mind at all. There's something sacred about that enveloping fatigue, the deep tiredness that comes from pouring every ounce of yourself into a person you cherish above all else. My back ached, my eyes perpetually bloodshot from sleepless nights, and I rarely found a moment to breathe. Yet I would not have traded those experiences for anything. My job, while not glamorous, had its unique rhythm. I sold hair products, flat irons, blow dryers, and hair extensions at various events such as conventions, state fairs, and malls. I had been doing this for years and was good at it. It paid well. A smile often graced my face, masking my determination amid the chaos. Despite feeling empty inside from relentless worry and sleepless nights, the money I earned covered my rent and bills. Yet, I often felt like I was scraping by. It seemed as if I was constantly struggling to keep my head above water. Every moment I wasn't at work, I was devoted to my son. I didn't go out with friends, party, or even voice my frustrations. All that mattered was getting home in time to cuddle with him while reading his favorite bedtime stories, to witness him take his first wobbly steps, or to hear the pure, joyous sound of his laughter fill the room. Yet the cracks in our little family continued to widen. His mother grew more distant, her behavior increasingly erratic. Some days she was warm and engaging, a loving partner and mother. On others, she would retreat into the bedroom, locking the door for hours or vanish without a word. When I tried to reach out to understand her struggle, she would snap at me, accusing me of judging her or retreating further into silence. The day I recognized that everything had to change is clear and vivid in my mind. It had been a long, exhausting workday, and I stopped at McDonald's on my way home, just something quick and easy. As I walked, I could already envision my son's face lighting up at the mention of chicken nuggets, his all-time favorite. With the warm, crinkly bag in one hand and my keys in the other, I entered our home. But the moment I crossed the threshold, a thick, uncomfortable silence engulfed me, that eerie stillness that grips you when something is wrong. There were no familiar sounds of cartoons blaring, no delightful toddler noises, only a weighty quiet that settled heavily in the air. Then I saw her, his mother, slumped on the living room floor. Her body lay there motionless, eyes half closed, looking like a rag doll discarded carelessly. And just a few feet away, my son sat, wholly engrossed in playing with a toy car, blissfully unaware, as if this scene was just another day. My heart sank like a stone. I stood frozen in shock, the greasy food bag still clutched tightly in my hand. Then, as if breaking a spell, I dropped everything, rushed to my son, and lifted him into my arms, holding him tighter than ever. That was the moment, the line in the sand. It was painfully clear. Love wouldn't mend this shattered situation. Hope wasn't sufficient. If I remained passive, I would be complicit in this ongoing tragedy. She left the next day, taking our son to her mother's place in Tempe, convinced I wouldn't fight back or try to take a stand. But she didn't honestly know me. The following day, I boarded a bus heading to the courthouse, my heart racing with determination. Clutched in my hands was a folder of evidence, screenshots capturing alarming messages, medical records revealing unsettling truths, and haunting photos that spoke 1,000 words. My intention was not to punish her. Instead, I was driven by a fierce resolve to save him. He deserved so much more than this, a life filled with safety and stability, a sanctuary of love that wouldn't be overshadowed by chaos and uncertainty. In that moment, I transformed from being just a dad into a protector, an unwavering advocate, and a fierce fighter for what was right. And that was the moment everything changed.